The Crimson Letters. Written by Ethan Blackwood and narrated by Sebastian Wolf. In the small, sleepy town of Willowbrook, a sinister secret lay hidden beneath the veneer of its quaint and charming facade. The centuries-old architecture, cobblestone streets, and gentle whispers of the willow trees that lined the riverbanks seemed to lull the residents into a sense of security. But in recent months, the town had been plagued by a series of gruesome murders, each more chilling than the last. And as the body count rose, so too did the whispers of fear and unease, which threatened to rip the once tranquil town asunder. Enter Claire, a keen-eyed true crime writer in search of inspiration for her next novel. As she crossed the threshold of Willowbrook, she felt the town's eerie stillness wash over her like a shroud. She had come in search of answers, but she knew that the path to the truth would be fraught with danger and deception. Undeterred, she was determined to unravel the tangled threads of the town's dark past and bring the killer to justice. The series of murders that had befallen Willowbrook were as inexplicable as they were macabre. Each victim had received a letter prior to their death, written in what was later discovered to be blood. These crimson letters, as they had come to be known, were more than mere harbingers of doom. They were cryptic messages left by the killer, taunting the authorities and striking fear into the hearts of the townsfolk. The victims themselves were ordinary residents of Willowbrook, with seemingly no connection to one another: a beloved schoolteacher, a respected doctor, a young bartender with dreams of leaving the small town behind. Each murder was executed with chilling precision, the victims bound and mutilated in a manner both horrifying and ritualistic. Upon arriving in Willowbrook, Claire wasted no time in presenting her credentials as a true crime writer to the local sheriff, a gruff and weathered man named Silas. Sheriff Silas, though initially reluctant to involve an outsider in the investigation, was swayed when Claire presented a piece of evidence that she had uncovered during her preliminary research, a detail overlooked by the local authorities. Recognizing the value of Claire's keen investigative skills, he reluctantly agreed to share information on the murders and granted her access to the evidence and crime scenes. As they began to work together, Claire sensed Sheriff Silas's growing desperation to find a solution to the murders that had haunted his town. In an effort to learn more about the lives of the victims, Claire interviewed their families and friends. She listened to their stories, their grief, and their fear, all the while searching for the elusive link that might solve the mystery. As she delved deeper into the lives of the victims, she discovered a secret that none had dared to speak of: the existence of a clandestine literary society, of which all the victims had been members. The secret literary society, known as the Order of the Quill, was an enigmatic and exclusive group that met under the cloak of darkness to discuss and dissect banned and controversial books. The society's members took great care to maintain their anonymity even amongst themselves, using code names and a rigorous vetting process for potential new members. Their meetings were held in a concealed and ever-changing location, known only to those who had proven themselves worthy of entrance. Claire, being a resourceful and determined investigator, managed to piece together enough information from her interviews and observations to infiltrate the Order of the Quill. She attended one of their clandestine meetings, her heart pounding as she descended the creaking stairs into the dimly lit chamber where the society gathered. The air was thick with the scent of old books and candle wax, and the hushed, reverential tones of the members as they discussed forbidden texts sent a shiver down her spine. As she sat among them, Claire observed the members closely, taking note of their mannerisms, their choice of books, and any potential clues that might lead her to the killer. She carefully concealed her own identity, adopting the moniker Raven and sharing her own insights into the controversial works they discussed. In doing so, she hoped to form connections with those present, and perhaps even unmask the murderer in their midst. Her investigation into the society's chosen works soon bore fruit, as Claire began to notice peculiar connections between the books and the murders themselves. It seemed that the killer was drawing inspiration from the very texts that the society held so dear. Each murder appeared to be a twisted homage to a passage from one of the banned books, a connection that had gone unnoticed by the authorities. The most compelling connection, however, came when Claire stumbled upon a particularly obscure and chilling novel, The Art of the Crimson Quill. This book, which had been a topic of discussion at one of the Society's recent meetings, romanticized murder as an art form and contained passages that bore an uncanny resemblance to the events surrounding the victims' deaths. In one passage, for example, the novel described a victim marked by a blood-stained letter, their fate sealed by a ritualistic killing that mirrored the gruesome manner in which the Willowbrook victims had met their end. Claire also noticed that the author of the book was a former resident of Willowbrook, adding a layer of personal connection to the mystery. Armed with this information, Claire began to piece together the puzzle that would lead her to the killer's identity. Claire shared her findings with Sheriff Silas, who could no longer deny the validity of her theory. Together, they began to examine the details of the passage from The Art of the Crimson Quill that had provided the crucial clue. They discovered that the passage contained a subtle reference to a local landmark in Willowbrook, which led them to the realization that the killer was not only a member of the Order of the Quill, but also someone intimately familiar with the town's history and geography. As their investigation progressed, Claire and Sheriff Silas worked to narrow down the list of suspects within the Order of the Quill. They focused on those who had displayed particular interest in the Art of the Crimson Quill during the Society's meetings, as well as those who had personal connections to the author or the town's history. Their efforts paid off when they discovered that one of the members, a man known only by his code name The Scholar, was in fact a close relative of the book's author with a history of obsession with the macabre. With their primary suspect identified, Claire and Sheriff Silas devised a plan to confront The Scholar. They knew that approaching him directly could be dangerous, and that they needed to gather more evidence before they could make an arrest. Claire decided to attend another meeting of the Order of the Quill, hoping to subtly gather more information on The Scholar and confirm her suspicions. At the meeting, Claire carefully observed The Scholar, noting his reactions and interactions with the other members. As the discussion turned to The Art of the Crimson Quill, his eyes lit up with a sinister gleam, and he spoke passionately about the beauty of the murders described within its pages. As the night wore on, Claire managed to engage him in a private conversation, skillfully steering the discussion towards the recent murders in Willowbrook. To her horror, The Scholar seemed to revel in the details of the killings, hinting at knowledge that only the murderer could possess. Realizing the danger she was in, Claire quickly excused herself from the conversation with The Scholar and sent a carefully coded message to Sheriff Silas, informing him of her findings and providing a subtle clue to her location. The sheriff, understanding the urgency of the situation, immediately gathered his deputies and set out to find Claire and apprehend the killer. As Claire waited for Sheriff Silas to arrive, she knew she had to stay vigilant and avoid raising any suspicion from The Scholar. She continued to engage with the other members of the Order of the Quill, all the while keeping a watchful eye on her primary suspect. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as she anxiously awaited the sound of footsteps, signaling the arrival of the sheriff and his deputies. Finally, the telltale sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the chamber, and Sheriff Silas, accompanied by his deputies, burst into the room. The members of the Order of the Quill gasped in shock at the intrusion, but none were more surprised than The Scholar. His eyes widened in disbelief and fear as he realized that his carefully crafted web of deception had been unraveled. Cornered, The Scholar attempted to flee, but Claire and the deputies quickly closed in on him, cutting off any possible escape routes. His desperate gaze darted around the room, searching for a way out that didn't exist. As the authorities closed in, he snarled defiantly and lunged at Claire, his hands reaching for her throat. With a surge of adrenaline, Claire managed to evade his grasp and counter his attack, using her knowledge of self-defense techniques to subdue him. Sheriff Silas and his deputies rushed forward to apprehend The Scholar, whose face now betrayed the terror of the cornered predator he had become. Bound and defeated, the nightmare that had plagued Willowbrook was finally at an end. As The Scholar was led away in handcuffs, Claire and Sheriff Silas exchanged a look of relief and gratitude. The unlikely duo had succeeded in unmasking the killer and bringing him to justice, saving countless other potential victims from a similar fate. While the emotional scars of the ordeal would not heal quickly, they knew that they had helped restore a measure of peace to the troubled town of Willowbrook. In the aftermath of the scholar's arrest, the town of Willowbrook began the slow and painful process of healing. The once idyllic town had been forever changed by the gruesome murders and the dark secrets that had been unearthed. The Order of the Quill disbanded, its members left to grapple with the guilt of having unwittingly harbored a killer in their midst. Families mourned the loss of their loved ones, and the townsfolk came together to offer support and consolation in their shared grief. As the town began to heal, Claire reflected on her experiences in Willowbrook. Her time there had left her forever changed, both physically and emotionally. The scars of her harrowing encounter with the scholar served as a constant reminder of the darkness that she had faced and the lives that had been lost. However, she also knew that her actions had saved countless other potential victims and had brought a measure of closure to the grieving families. Determined to honor the memory of those who had perished, Claire poured her heart and soul into her next novel, chronicling the chilling tale of the Crimson Letters. The story captivated readers with its dark mystery and hauntingly familiar characters, and Claire's writing was praised for its depth and authenticity. As the book gained acclaim, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, knowing that the truth of the Willowbrook murders had been brought to light. In the end, the legacy of the Crimson Letters served as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within the hearts of men and the power of a single, determined individual to bring that darkness to light. For Claire, and for the town of Willowbrook, the events surrounding the murders would never be forgotten. They would serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of innocence and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. As Claire closed the cover of her completed novel, she knew that the story of the Crimson Letters would remain with her always, a haunting testament to the power of truth and the courage it takes to face the darkness head-on. And so, with a heavy heart, she bid farewell to the town of Willowbrook and the ghosts that haunted its streets, determined to carry their memory with her as she continued her search for justice in a world all too often shadowed by evil.